Hello, this is David with Stupid Things People Do and what we can learn from them. Hey, and speaking of random stupid things, maybe don't fire your top employees just to replace them with newer models. Meet Geraldine. As always, not her real name. Geraldine worked at Covenant Woods Senior Living, which is double ironic because A, people named after a faithful promise should know better, and B, people who work every day with the elderly should know better. The short of the long of this is that Geraldine happened to be a septuagenarian, and as happens with many people, including septuagenarians, she had to visit the hospital. When she got back, her employer did what any reasonable employer would do in that situation. They asked her if she would like to retire. Weirdly, no, she would not like to retire, so they did what is implied in their name, and they faithfully fired her the next day. Now, some context. It's not as if this senior living home situation was firing a patient who confusedly got hired at some sort of silent generation version of a student worker program. No, instead she was voted Employee of the Year 14 years running until this rather abrupt termination in 2022. So unless she had some sort of sudden and drastic downturn in performance in the last 6 months, it's going to be kind of hard to argue this added up to fired for performance issues. Of course, it's also possible that the overtures for retirement were spawned by a necessary but tragic ending of her job position within the company, except as I mentioned, they replaced her with a newer, fancier model. At this point, the censors recommend I stop referring to employees as if they were trophy wives or trophy cars. And that would be a lot easier if this employer weren't treating their employee like the aforementioned trophy wife car. But weird mashups aside, what if they fired her because she was too disabled to do her job? After all, she did go to the hospital. And oh boy, if that isn't a disturbing thought that a hospital trip would be grounds for termination. But then again, this isn't the first time punishing workers for hospital visits had come up as a talking point this season, and now I'm worried that this is going to become a pattern. So no, you can't just fire people because they have a disability. You viewers and I have been over this, and I suspect that their attorney also went over this because they settled the case immediately due to costs of litigation being too high. Now, I will totally grant that litigation is incredibly expensive, and I would go with that explanation if it weren't for the second part, where Covenant Woods admitted to no wrongdoing or discriminatory conduct as part of the resolution. And then they alleged that they comply with all discrimination in other labor employment. Now, the attorneys have made it clear that I can't legally accuse them of gaslighting, but come on, is it really feasible that their attorney looked at what they did and said, yeah, no wrongdoing here? Or is it more like that conversation went, wait a minute, you did what? How many times? We have got to settle. Though, to be fair, our attorneys say that this kind of language is always used and could mean anything from the company is totally innocent to the company is lining up employees and shooting them. I mean, what were they supposed to say? Yo, we violated both the ADA and the ADEA, but we're cool now. So, lots of jokes, but no shade at their legal team. And this is just speculation. But what I've noticed is that where idiocy runs, it runs in packs. In other words, where you find one illegally idiotic decision, you usually find multiple illegally idiotic decisions. And these are not things that you want to be popping out of the woodwork during the legal discovery process, which I think might have been the actual motivator here. And again, that is wild speculation. Also, briefly turning away from the aforementioned wild speculation to the EEOC's less wild speculation, which I am inclined to agree with here. The company terminated, and I'm quoting them here, a high-performing, long-tenured employee on the unfounded assumption that her age and medical condition would prevent her from doing her job. The district director of the EEOC went on to note regarding her hospitalization that employers cannot use actual or perceived disabilities for employment decisions. If the EEOC is right, and I suspect they are, the organization ran afoul of not one, but two different laws. The ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the ADEA, the Age Discrimination in Employment Act. So what can we learn from all this? I don't know if it makes sense to have a policy not to myopically fire little old ladies after their hospital trip. So I can't really do my usual plan your policies, obey the law, talk to counsel shtick. Maybe just don't do too any employee what you wouldn't want done to your own grandmother. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.